The site of the future Golden Link building at Bendigo's Central Deborah mine was the stage for the official sale of the tracks, lines and fittings that form an integral part of Bendigo's tram system. The Bendigo Trust bought the trams from the SEC in 1976 for the token price of $1. Today's transaction for the same sum completes the handover of the tramways.
Well, it really is completing an era. It marks an end to the time that the State Electricity Commission has had any actual ownership or involvement with the running of trams in Bendigo.
The historic nature of the sale was appropriately marked by the exchange of a 10-shilling note, the SEC resisting the urge to secure some much-needed state revenue.
No, I think much nor as they'd have liked to. They were pretty reasonable, and we ended up buying the whole lot for the princely sum of $1.
To coincide with the sale, the SEC launched a new tram for Bendigo. Number 808 is on loan from Melbourne's Public Transport Corporation. It took to the streets with a bang. 808 is the last W-class tram to come out of Melbourne. It's been lent by the corporation in exchange for Bendigo Tram 138, which has temporarily become part of Melbourne's vintage tram fleet. Dressed in the original 1903 Bendigo Tramways colours, 808 will form part of Bendigo's Talking Tram Tour for the next 3 years. And for those who shared in its maiden tour today, there's no doubt what a striking
Tramways
addition...
Trust finally took to the tracks today, 75 years after it was built. But you won't find it in Melbourne's western suburbs. The old car made its historic voyage through the streets of Bendigo.
It was a case of better late than never this morning as Footscray's mayor launched the first tram bearing the local tramways insignia. The Californian combination car was bought 3/4 of a century ago for use in Footscray, but never got to run that side of the tracks.
The Tramways Board commissioned the trams, had them built, but with problems with getting the power and the First World War, no tram actually ran.
Although it did see service in the streets of Hawthorn, the old tram, recently restored by the Bendigo Trust, finally ran in its originally intended Footscray crest today, with the city's first citizen at the controls.
It will add something to Footscray to know that a tram wearing the insignia of the Footscray Tramways Trust is running in Bendigo.
After 57 years as an idle museum attraction, the old rattler now joins Bendigo's team of talking trams. After its official maiden trip, students from Camp Hill Primary were given the honour of being the first fully fledged passengers on car number 21. And it's hoped many more from Melbourne's most famous western suburb will follow.
I'm sure that those people that might have come and looked in the Tramways Museum from Footscray in the western suburbs now should be pretty easy to convince to have a ride on the tram, seeing they can ride on a Footscray tram.
Made its debut journey more than 70 years after the organisation closed. Andrew Anderson reports on the launch of the latest addition to Bendigo's tourist tram fleet.
It's been a long journey to the track for the Footscray Tramways Trust. The organisation may be unique as the only tramways trust which never ran a tram. More than 70 years after the trust was overtaken by the then Melbourne Metropolitan Tramways Board, the first tram bearing its insignia hit the rails in Bendigo this morning.
They're probably all turning in their graves and saying, well, this is the first tram, I believe, that's actually run wearing or bearing the Footscray Tramways Trust insignia.
Number 21, a Californian combination tram, was built for the Footscray Trust in 1917, but couldn't be used in Footscray because there was no overhead power. By the time power was put through in 1921, the Footscray Trust was history. The tram was first used by the Hawthorn Tramways Board and worked as public transport in Bendigo between 1935 and 72.
The people of Footscray, when visiting Bendigo, will have the opportunity to actually ride on a Footscray tram.
Nostalgic journeys, historic city.
Saturday's anniversary celebration started at the Central Deborah gold mine, with visitors and invited guests boarding the trams that have taken more than 1 million passengers on a unique 8-kilometre journey through Bendigo's golden history. Trundling along to the sound of piped bands, the birthday cavalcade was led by former Victorian Premier Sir Rupert Hamer in tram number 30. His passengers not at all concerned about having a novice at the wheel. The Bendigo Trust commissioned the talking tram service in 1972. Since then, the vintage vehicles have attracted visitors from around the world. And while the presence of Transport Minister Alan Brown attracted a few voices of protest, it wasn't enough to spoil the celebration of one of the city's most endearing tourist attractions.
Well, after the break...